room in one-point perspective using a plan and an elevation. The materials we will use are grid paper, pencil eraser, tape, an 18-inch ruler, a yardstick, and a triangle that is 30, 60, 90 degrees. Let's begin. Let's start by looking at the plan and the elevation. So in the plan, that's going to show us the width of the room and also the depth of the room. So this represents the left wall, this is the right wall, this is the front of the room, and this is the back wall. So the plan doesn't show any height, it's flat. It's as if we're looking at the footprint of where things go on the floor. The elevation shows the height and the width. So again, this is the left side of the room, this is the right side of the room. This now is the floor, and this is the ceiling. So we're looking at height. There's no depth in the elevation. But between the plan and elevation, we will have all the information that we need to draw a room in perspective. So a couple things about the plan and elevation. Because they share width in common, you stack them on top of each other so that you can correspond the object from the plan with the same object in the elevation. So for instance, the bed is located, we're looking straight down at the room, let's say, so we can notice that the bed is located 4 feet back from the front of the room and 4 feet forward from the back of the room. And the bed looks to be 6 feet long this way. And if we follow that down to our elevation, it should correspond right here, 6 feet. So the plan doesn't tell us how tall the bed is. We have to look at the elevation for height. So the elevation tells us that the bed is 2 feet high. I should also mention that plans and elevations are drawn with this scale on them. And in this case, every unit represents a foot. And we're going to use a scale on our perspective drawing as well. So we need to set up the basic principles for our drawing. We need to show the picture plane, the horizon line, the vanishing point, the station point. And so I'm going to walk you through step by step how to get the basics set up before we even start to draw the room. So we'll start with the picture plane. And the picture plane is our window into the picture. And that window is going to be the edges of our room. So it's going to be the left and right side, the floor and the ceiling. So we're going to look at the elevation for that information. So you can see from the elevation that our room is 16 feet wide and 8 feet tall. So we're going to make our picture plane 16 inches wide. I'm going to use an inch equals a foot, and 8 inches tall. So let's go ahead and do that. So if I find the middle, I can count 8 this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Looks like I'm just going to make it on this piece of paper. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If your paper's not big enough, you can tape 2 pieces of paper together. Just if you do that, maintain whole inches wherever you overlap the sheets of paper. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so we'll draw our picture plane in. You can stop this video at any time to go ahead and do yours at the same time. Okay, so that's our window into the room. This is our picture plane. Now we need to label it. So at the top, write the scale. So we're working with 1 inch on the grid paper equals a foot. And then we should mark our units along the ground line, which is the bottom of your picture plane. GL is your ground line. And we'll start with 0 right up against the left wall, and then 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, etc. Also mark the units along the left side. So again, 0 is at the floor level, and this is 1 foot high, 2 foot high, 3 foot high, etc., up to 8 feet. Okay, that's your picture plane. Next, we're going to draw the horizon line and the central vanishing point. So let's take a look again at our elevation and see if that gives us a clue. And yes, the central vanishing point has been indicated here, so I'm going to go with what it tells me. So it looks like the central vanishing point is located right at 6 feet. It's always on the horizon line, so this is your horizon line at 6 feet. And then the viewer is standing not quite in the middle of the room, they're standing 1 foot to the right. So if they were in the middle of the room, they'd be above the 8, but they're 1 foot to the right, so they're above the 9. So the central vanishing point is going to establish the height of the viewer, so the viewer is 6 feet tall, and the distance the viewer is standing from each wall. So in this case, the viewer is standing 9 feet from the left wall. So let's go ahead and plot that horizon line and central vanishing point on our drawing. So 6 feet, go ahead and put the horizon line in. And then above the 9 will give us the central vanishing point right there. So we've established the height of the viewer and the left-right position of the viewer. Next, we need to establish how far back the viewer is standing from this scene, and that's called the station point. The station point is going to be directly below the central vanishing point underneath the ground line. So I need to extend my paper so I can draw this line further down. So I'm going to push this up a little bit. So it'll be here, and then it'll continue down here. So you need another sheet of paper for this. And to conserve paper, I don't use the whole sheet. I just cut a strip of it. And you can cut it with scissors or with a paper cutter. I'm just going to quickly cut it with my ruler. So I am going to tape this at the bottom here to extend this line down. Push this up some more. And when you tape it on, what's really important is that you maintain a whole inch right here. So if I were to tape it here, I wouldn't have a whole inch. So I need to overlap it and line it up good, and I'll get my tape ready so I can tape it when I'm all set. Okay, so make sure this line is lined up and overlap it so you maintain a whole inch and that it's straight. I'm doing little adjustments to get it where I want it to be, and then I'll tape it in place. I call this a tail, but it's an extension for the station point. And so now you're going to connect your central vanishing point, and you're just going to draw it straight down, all the way down this tail. So I'll use my ruler to do that straight. Okay, so just to show you what I did, I've got connected from my central vanishing point, and I went down, 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 all the way to near the bottom of my paper here. So I need this line to be long because I need to figure out where my station point's going to go. It's going to go some point on this line. Where do I put it? The station point is determined by something called the cone of vision. Linear perspective only works within our cone of vision. It doesn't work in peripheral vision. So the cone of vision is about 60 degrees. So this is where my triangle is going to come in. And then you want to take your triangle and find the 60-degree side, which is this one. And you want to put it on the line and center it there. Now it's kind of hard to know where is center because my triangle doesn't mark that. You don't want to tilt it one way or the other. So instead of guessing, what I'm going to do is use my 30-degree side and line it up with the center line. So it'll have 30 degrees on this side and 30 degrees on this side, which will make a total of 60. So using my 30 degree here, if I were to put my station point here, a lot of my drawing is going to be outside of this 60-degree cone of vision. And what's going to happen is I'm going to get distortion in this corner. And let's check the other corner. Right, so this is outside of the cone of vision as well. So I'm going to slide this down. And at this point here, just a little bit is outside my cone of vision, so that's not too bad. I won't notice any distortion in that corner. It's minimal. And let me check the other side. Okay, I forget where I was. So I am down a little bit off screen. I'm about here. When I put my triangle, the tip of my 30 degrees there, this is pretty good. So I have a little bit of my picture plane outside. That's okay. And then the other way, all of it's within my cone of vision. The whole thing, it comes right to the corner. So this is a good spot to have my station point right here. I'll have minimal distortion. The further down your station point, that's going to make your measuring points further apart on the horizon line. So I try and have the station point as close as I can without creating a lot of distortion on my drawing. So that's why I'm accepting a little bit of overlap on this side. So I would like you to give a dotted line where your cone of vision is so that I know that you determined your station point by figuring out your 60-degree cone of vision. So I put this dotted line, you see that? And then you can label it COV for cone of vision and do the same on this side. Here, I'm lining it up down here. Dotted line. And I'll continue that up here. dotted line showing me that this is outside the cone of vision and this is inside. So I'll label this too, cone of vision. And it's 60 degrees total because I did 30 here and 30 here. So that's 60-degree cone of vision. So I've made my station point. I'll label it SP. Now count the number of inches from your central vanishing point to your station point and just count those inches down. So we've got it's at 18 feet right there. So I'm just going to mark that there, 18 feet. Okay, so now we know that the viewer is standing 6 feet high. They're located 9 feet from the left wall, and they're standing back from the room 18 feet, as determined by our cone of vision and marked with our station point. So the position of our viewer is set. Once we have our station point, we can plot what are called measuring points. Measuring points are the same as 2-point perspective vanishing points that are at 45 degrees to the viewer. And this is going to be helpful in helping us to determine how to go back in space a particular number of feet. So the first thing we need to do is we need to extend our horizon line out because our measuring points are going to be outside of our picture plane. So take a minute to cut your paper and then line up your paper so it creates whole inches here and whole inch there, and tape it on so that we have horizon line that extends out. I call them wings. Make sure you maintain whole inches here at the overlap. There are two ways to determine how to plot or where to plot your measuring points. The first way is to use the method that we use to plot vanishing points in general. So we go down to our station point, way down here. There it is. we take our triangle with the 90-degree side and we would center this, and we would follow this edge up all the way to the horizon line on that side, and this edge up all the way to the horizon line on this side to plot our measuring points. This needs to be perfectly centered. 45, 90, 45. So we have 90 in the middle. So you can plot it that way. The easier way, however, is to simply count the distance between the central vanishing point right here. So count the distance from here all the way down to our station point, and we did that already. It's 18. And then just to mark that same distance from the central vanishing point to the right, and then from the central vanishing point to the left. So I'm going to count 18. 1, 2, 3. Right here. I need to extend my horizon line a bit. Get it to fit on there. Okay, so that's a measuring point. And then do the same on the other side. Start with your central vanishing point and count 18. Okay, and that's your measuring point on the left side. So that's why it's important to maintain whole inches here at the overlap, so that you can easily just count your inches going across. Okay, we have measuring points. Now we have everything we need to start drawing the room in 1-point perspective. Let's begin drawing the corners of the room from the corners of our picture plane to the central vanishing point. Okay, so this is the floor, and it goes into infinity. This is the right wall, this is the ceiling, and this is the left wall. We need to establish where the back wall goes, and we need to refer to our plan to tell us how far back to put it. So looking at our plan, that shows us width, left wall, right wall, and depth, front of the room, back wall. So if we look at where the back wall is located, it's 12 feet back from the front of the room. Now we're going to use our measuring point to measure units back against this wall. Okay, so remember this wall is now this line in perspective. Okay, so we're going to use this line. We're also going to use the ground line. We're going to connect the 12-foot mark on the ground line to the measuring point, which is 45 degrees, and that's going to get us a square, and we're going to find that intersection line on the left wall and mark it. Okay, this is where we need the bigger ruler, the yardstick, to reach our measuring point. So I'm going to connect, see if I can, I don't think I can fit everything on the screen, but I'm going to line up my ruler here at the 12-foot mark on my ground line, and I'm going to connect it to my measuring point right here. Now, I don't need to draw the line the whole way. I'm really just interested in where this point is along my corner of my room. So this point. So I'm lined up with the 12 on my ground line to my left side measuring point, and I'm finding where that line would intersect my left corner of my room. So that is going to mark 12 feet back. Okay, so this distance from here to here is 12 feet back in space. We transferred a measurement from here, 12 foot here, we transferred that measurement to this line. So right here we can put in our back wall. I'm going to go straight up until I meet this corner of the room, then I'll go straight across until I meet this corner of the room, straight down, and it should meet up. You won't land on a blue line necessarily, and that's fine, but the blue lines will at least help you to stay straight. So really try and not bend your line here. So I'll go straight to this point. Okay, that is our back wall. It's located 12 feet back from the front of the room. So we have our basic interior of a room now, and we can start putting in some architectural features. Let's put in the window first. Taking a look at our plan and elevation, the window is located on the back wall. It looks like it is, the left side of the window is 5 feet from the left wall, and the right side of the window is also 5 feet from the right wall. It's at the 11. So at the 5 and at the 11. The bottom of the window is 3 feet off the ground, and the top of the window is at 7 feet. So we'll use these dimensions to project back in space. Remember that your scale, 1 inch equals a foot, is only true at the picture plane. When we go back into space, things shrink and get smaller. So we have to project our measurements using that central vanishing point. Now I know the window's on the back wall, and the back wall is already here. So that's great. I don't have to use my measuring point to go back in space because my back wall is already here. We just did that. But I need to get back there. I have to get back to that back wall. So I'm going to start at the 5, and I'm going to line up to my central vanishing point. That'll move me back in space. So you'll go back until you hit the back wall. Once you hit the back wall, you can stop right here. And from this point, now we're up against the back wall, we can go straight up. And we'll also do that from the 11. I always like to double check. Yep, it's over the 11. So I'll connect my 11 to my central vanishing point. I'll have to travel along the floor to move myself back to the back wall. Okay, now I'm at the back wall. So this is 5 feet here, this is 5 feet here. I'll go straight up. Okay, so that's the left and right side. We'll do the same thing for the bottom and top of the window, but we'll use the picture plane left side here. So we'll line up the 3 foot. Just once again, we're going from the 3 and the 7. Okay, so I'll line up the 3 foot mark. To get to the back wall, I have to use my vanishing point to get there. And once I hit that back wall, that corner, I can stop and I can go flush on the back wall now. We'll do the same from the 7. Okay, we got our window. I'm going to trace over it to make it bolder so you can distinguish it from my other markings. Okay, that's my window. It's on the back wall. It's located 5 feet from the left wall on both sides. 5 feet, 5 feet. It's located 3 feet. The bottom windowsill is up 3 feet and the top is at 7. Let's do the door next. The door is trickier because it's on a receding plane. It's on the right wall, right here. So that makes it tricky because it's on a plane that's at an angle to us. So we're going to use our measuring point in this case to help us locate how far back the door goes. Let's look at the plan. The door is here and here. So this lines up with the 7, and this lines up with the 10. In terms of the height of the door, it is just as tall as the window, right? It's at 7 feet high. Okay, so those are our measurements. We want to go 7 feet high for the door, and then we want to measure 7 feet back in space to get this side of the door, and we want to measure 10 feet back in space to get this side of the door. This is where we're going to use our measuring point. Let's start with this one. This one's a little easier, and then we'll get to these two. So for the height, same as our window, but we're going to use this side now. So we'll bring our 7 over. 7 is here. So we'll line up the 7 with our central vanishing point. We'll travel down the wall. Okay, so the top of our door is going to be here. The bottom of the door, of course, is right at the corner of the room. Okay, now we got to do the sides of the door. So we're going to use our measuring point. We're going to use the measuring point on the right side this time. When we did the back wall, I used the measuring point on the left side. You could use it either way. But because my door is on the right side, I want to use my measuring point on the right side. So what I'm going to do, when you use your measuring point on the right side, you have to use 0 at the right corner. And then this will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so you have to remember that when you use the right measuring point, count 0 on the right. Okay, so I need to slide over because I'm going off the table here. Okay, wonder if I can get quite get, oh yeah, maybe I can. I can get everything in the picture here. Okay, so maybe you see my measuring point off to the right, and then you see my ground line markings here. So I want to go 7 feet back from the front of the room, and I also want to go 10 feet back from the front of the room. So from my 7, I'll line it up to my measuring point. And I'll mark, I don't have to draw the line the whole way. You can if that's easier for you, but what you really need is just where it's going to intersect this corner of the room. So I went from my 7 on my ground line to my measuring point and marked that right here. And I'll also do that from the 10 on my ground line to my measuring point. So the measuring points help you measure distance going back in space. So this is 7 feet back, and this is 10 feet back. From these points, I can go straight up to meet the top of my door. We've got our door. Next, let's place the bed in the room. The bed is located 4 feet back from the front of the room on this side and 8 feet back from the front of the room on that side. So we're going to use our measuring point to find these distances going back in space along the corner of the room right here. So this line is this right here. So we're going to locate those spots, the 4 and the 8. So we're going to use the measuring point on the left side this time. And I'm going to connect the 4 to the measuring point. I'll slide this over so you can perhaps see the measuring point. There it is. Okay, so I'll connect the 4 to the measuring point here. And again, I don't need to draw the line all the way. What I'm really interested in is this point where it crosses the corner of the room. And then I'll draw a line from the 8, so 8 to the measuring point. And mark that spot on my corner of my room. So the bed will go here. And it's going to go, I'll first do the footprint on the floor where it's going to take up space on the floor. So it'll go straight out this way. And it's going to go, I believe it's 6 feet, right? To 6 feet here. So now I need to draw a line from the front of the room to the back of the room so I can find this 6-foot spot. So I'm going to use my vanishing point to do that. So along the floor, I'm going to connect the 6-foot mark to my central vanishing point. Draw myself a line. Where am I? Right here. Okay, so that's 6 feet all the way here. 6 feet, 6 feet, 6 feet, 6 feet. So I can connect these points. So this is the footprint where the bed will sit on the floor. Now I'll do the imprint of where the bed is going to lean up against the wall. And to look at my height of my bed, I look at the elevation for height. So it's 2 feet high. Okay. So I'll connect the 2-foot mark to the central vanishing point so I can draw that line on the wall. And then I can go straight up from here to meet that line. Make it a little longer. Okay, so I have where the bed is leaning up against the wall, where the bed is sitting on the floor. So with these dimensions, I can finish off my box. So I'm going to go straight up here. And then straight across from here to meet this line. That'll finish off that front plane of the bed. Okay, and then the back plane of the bed is going to go up from here. From this point. Okay, to finish my box, I'm going to connect these corners. Hopefully, they line up to the central vanishing point. They're supposed to, so let's see how well I did. Pretty good. Okay, so we have a box that represents the bed. Later, I'll soften the edges so that it's not so sharp and geometric. I'll make it look like there's blankets on the bed and a pillow, but we want to just put in the blocks first before we put in those details. The rug on the floor. The rug is lined up with the bed. I see it's here at 4 feet and 8 feet. And to do something that's a circle, first do it as a square, and then you can create the ellipse to make it a circle. So I'm just going to draw a square around it so I can see how big it is. So here it lines up with the 4 and the 8, and this lines up with the 8 and the 12. Okay, so I already determined these spaces when I did the bed, so I can just continue those lines out. And then it's between the 8 and the 12 here. So I'm going to use the vanishing point for this one so I can draw those lines on the floor going back to the vanishing point. Okay, so my rug is going to sit within this shape. So just sketch an ellipse. It needs to touch all 4 sides. Try and draw it so it's symmetrical and that it curves at an even rate. So I lightly sketch it in until I feel like the shape is pretty accurate. Okay, so there's our rug. So the bookshelf is leaning up against the right wall. It's located 2 feet back from the front of the room. On this side is a 2, and it looks like this is lined up with a 5. So I'm going to use my measuring point on the right side to determine 2 feet back and 5 feet back. So when we use that measuring point on the right, we renumber this so it's 0 here. So we're going to connect this to the measuring point to find that point, and we'll connect this to the measuring point to find this point right here. So let's do that first. Slide this down. Hopefully get the measuring point in there. Great. From the 2, which is right here, to the measuring point. And from the 5 to the measuring point. And I just mark them on the corner of the room, right here, here and here. So the bookcase will go up at that point and across at this point. Okay, so how tall is our bookcase? Looking at height in the elevation, it is 3 feet tall. So we're going to carry the measurements from the left side over to the right. 1, 2, 3 feet tall. Connect that to the vanishing point. And draw that in. Okay, and then the width of the bookshelf is just a foot. So I'm just going to go from the 15 to my central vanishing point and draw that spot on the floor, and then connect my markings here straight across. So I have the footprint on the floor, and I have where it leans up against the wall. And now I'll finish off these 2 planes. That goes straight up, and I'll put this straight across. Okay, that's that plane. And now for the back plane. From this point straight up, and from here straight across. Hopefully these 2 corners line up to my central vanishing point. Bad. There we go. So there's our bookcase. Again, when I go to make this look more realistic, I'll put in maybe a center shelf, and I'll put a little thickness to the bookcase, so it's like made out of, wood, and I'll put some books in there. I'll put a design on the rug and maybe some pictures on the wall. So that's the basics of your room. I'll center it again so you can see the whole thing. There we go. Okay, I'll put some details in next.